The Bowling Green Depot of the L&N Railroad is now a wonderful museum. It was saved from being demolished. This is a campaign to save the depot, which was going to be torn down. March 5th, 1850, the L&N was chartered by the state of Kentucky. This is Mark's toys, toy trains in World War II, depicting the Army supply trains. Look at this model railroad here. I'm in the L&M depot, or the Bowling Green depot. Look, they got the circus. What's this guy hanging out there? All right, this is the waiting room at the depot in Bowling Green. And let's check out the history. 1790, Bowling Green was settled. In 1858 was the first train. The trip from Louisville to Nashville now takes 8 hours. It takes 9 hours with freight trains making the run in 18 hours. Wow, that's what you call progress, huh? It's a Harvey girl, Fred Harvey. That's the company I work for. Fred Harvey Girls, from the movie The Harvey Girls. Members of the cast included Judy Garland, all right, Fred Harvey ran the concessions of restaurants on the railroads. And here he is, here's the man, Fred Harvey. He was British originally. With the completion of the railroads to the west following the Civil War, vast areas of the regions were opened up for settlement. People traveling by train would have to pack hefty baskets of food if they were to survive the long journey. There were some crudely built businesses in various train stops that offered food for purchase, but the selection and quality was poor and the prices were high. In 1876, Fred Harvey, an English immigrant who had a popular restaurant in Topeka, Kansas, went into the restaurant business with the Atchison, Topeka, and Santa Fe Railroad. The Santa Fe Railroad built eating houses at various towns along the route, and Fred Harvey managed each one by hiring cooks, bakers, and kitchen staff, ensuring quality and training personnel. He was known for, back in Topeka, namely good food, good service, and good prices. Originally, staff members were all men, but in 1883, Mr. Harvey noticed that the male waiters were unreliable and fired the entire staff. At a Harvey house in Raton, New Mexico, Mr. Harvey decided to hire only female servers for all the Harvey houses and took out ads in newspapers throughout the Midwest. The Harvey Girl uniform. They were very strict about this. The Harvey Girl uniform was plain starch, black and white skirts, bibs, aprons, white high-colored shirts with black shoes, black stockings, and hairnets. Wanted, young woman, 18 to 30 years of age, of good moral character, attractive and intelligent, to waitress in Harvey eating houses. Thousands of ladies sent in their application. Each step was taken to ensure that any female hired as a Harvey girl, which is what they were called, had an exemplary character. Harvey wanted women who were well-educated, exhibited manners, clear speech, and were neat in appearance. The Harvey House and Hotel provided the ladies with respectable and safe means of employment and allowed the ladies to be independent and provide for their families back home. From 1883 through the late 1950s, some 100,000 Harvey girls came west. Each Harvey girl signed a 6, 9, or 12-month contract and underwent a 6-week training period before being assigned to a Harvey House. Training was often completed in Topeka, Kansas, including how to properly set a table, ensure that there were no cracks or chips in the glassware, how to best serve food and beverages. They were never to argue with the guests and were reminded to always keep a smile on their face. They served a 4-course meal in under 30 minutes. The Harvey girls, opportunity bound. Yes, and a lot of them wound up marrying people out west. Rosie the Riveter, Will Monroe's. The Willow Run Aircraft Factory trained female pilots to fly armaments around the country. Because Monroe was a single mother, she was not selected for the program like she hoped. Monroe ended up working on the assembly line as a riveter in the B-24 and B-49 bomber airplanes. A promising discovery in 1944, Monroe had discovered at the Willow Run Airport Factory by a Canadian actor named Walter Pidgeon. Pidgeon visited Monroe's factory to shoot footage for films and promoted the sale of war bonds. When Pidgeon met Monroe, he believed that he had found the real Rosie. Rosie the Riveter. That was Will Monroe. He was born in 1920 as one of the 9 children to a carpenter and a housewife in rural Science Hill, Pulaski County, Kentucky. Growing up, Monroe became skilled in carpentry and defied traditional gender. Overcoming hardships, in 1943, a car accident claimed the life of her first husband. Monroe left Kentucky with their 2 young children in rural poverty and traveled north. She ended up in Ypsilanti, Michigan, working at the Willow Run Aircraft Factory. Becoming an icon. Monroe ended up appearing as Rosie the Riveter in the popular films promoting the sale of war bonds and received national attention. Because of the national attention, Monroe was most often identified as the real Rosie the Riveter. Later in life, at the age of 50, Monroe finally earned her pilot's license and went on to become the only woman in her local aeronautical club. 1978, Monroe was in a plane accident and resulted in the loss of a kidney, a contributing factor to her death in 1997. And here's the metaphorical Rosie the Riveter. Westinghouse poster, 1942. We can do it. Later years it would be called Rosie the Riveter, though it was never given this title during the war. We Can Do It poster was displayed only to Westinghouse employees in the Midwest during the 2-week period in February 1943. Then it disappeared for nearly 4 decades. The purpose of the poster was not to recruit women workers, but rather as a motivational propaganda aimed at workers of both sexes already employed in Westinghouse. There she is, got her sleeves rolled up and flexing those muscles. Post magazine, May 29, 1943. Saturday Evening Post. In 1943, Norman Rockwell created this painting of Rosie the Riveter, which appeared on the cover of the Memorial Day issue of the Saturday Evening Post. In this image, a muscular Rosie takes a sandwich break with her feet resting on a copy of Hitler's Mein Kampf, while her riveting gun is temporarily idle. This image of Rosie was hypothetical, based on Michelangelo's Isaiah from the Sistine Chapel, and the model was not a riveter but a dental hygienist, Mary Keep. And there she is in 1942. Rosie the Riveter was first used in a song of the same name by Red Evans and Jacobs. Tramp, bum, hobo. Who is he? Hobo Times exhibit. Hobos played an interesting role in American history, although hobos have often been confused with bums and tramps. There is a significant difference between each one. The hobo was originally applied to the migratory workers of the South after the Civil War. Most of these traveling workers would perform farm work and regularly carried their own hoes. They were frequently called hoboys, which eventually was shortened to hobos. A bum is someone who mooches and begs. Many people were forced to become hobos when the Depression occurred, and these individuals soon became inured to the travel and rugged existence the lifestyle demanded. Even if a hobo did find permanent employment, it was often difficult for them to abandon their previous adventuresome lifestyle after they got a taste of traveling and living more carefree. Many hobos were reluctant to trade their wanderlust for shelter and security, since they preferred a life of action instead of accumulation. They have been depicted in movies and novels as men dressed in ragged clothes with beat up a hat, carrying a stick, a bundle, or biddle tied onto it. But not all hobos carried a biddle. Sometimes their possessions were wrapped in a coat, pockets, or inside large pockets. And there's their essentials: cups, pans, cooking pans, harmonica, Maxwell House coffee, and look, they even shaved. History of hobo nickels. Hobo symbols and slang. Big house was a prison. Blowed in the glass, a trustworthy person. Cannonball, fast train. Flop, place to sleep. Grayback, lice. Gump, meat scraps. Mulligan, stew made with scraps. Snipes, cigarette butts. Look how they would ride these things. Boxcars were their probably safest and most comfortable. Hobo jungle. Outskirts of cities had homeless men established social centers called jungles, places where hobos congregated to pass their leisure time outside of urban centers. It was a place to rest and repair. A society of outcasts, as Pinkerton called it. Jungle was located near a railroad. There were two classes of jungles, temporary and permanent. And they probably had a hierarchy beside the kept warm. Hobo jungle. Cooking. Oh, this is gear, I guess. The jungle was also a school where the techniques of survival were learned, while often viewed as a haven which hobo law, lore, and tradition was passed on. The jungle could also be a place of danger and intimidation. Police, railroad bulls, and criminals would find scapegoats or easy targets in hobo jungles. Railroads in the Civil War. Prior to the Civil War, railroads were still a new and relatively untried invention. When Civil War began in 1861, there were approximately 19 million people living in the United States. Of these, 9 million lived in the South. The North entered the Civil War with more than 200 railroads in existence and approximately 22,000 miles of tracks, most of it in a standardized gauge width of 4 feet 8.5 inches. This allowed loaded passenger cars and freight cars to be transferred easily between various railroads. In comparison, the South had approximately 9,000 miles of railroad track, but there was no standardized gauge. This meant that the North could transport troops and material much more efficiently than the South, a decisive tactical advantage for the North. The railroad's greatest effect on the warfare was the newfound ability provided to transport supplies and vast armies. The tremendous tonnage carried by the Civil War trains was pulled by small locomotives at speeds of 25 miles per hour or less. The North organizes train operations as the U.S. Military Railroad under Herman Haupt. They became especially adept in replacing bridges burned by Southern partisans operating behind federal lines. By the time the Civil War came to a close in 1865, railroads in the South had suffered huge physical and economic losses. One of the hardest hit was the Louisville and Nashville Railroad, which was victim to the greatest amount of destruction of any railroad during the war due to its geographical connection between northern and southern. These are World War I trains. Railroads were used to move troops and material. Rationing the railroad. Toot Sweet. Transportation Corps, 728.